Hey everyone, it's LJ here. Welcome back to another video. Okay, so welcome back everybody. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new, hello. So recently I have been reacting to REN and his incredible music. And so I've done a couple of ones that were highly suggested, and I've done a few of his retakes where he covers songs and adds his own lyrics. And today I wanted to look at one of his older pieces because I literally discovered REN March 2023 with the hello beautiful girl with his song Hi REN, which came out in December last year. And I don't quite know how I hadn't heard it. I must have been living under a rock or what have you. But I reacted to that. I've also reacted to a couple of his others. So I wanted to look at something that was a little bit older because he's been making music for a long time. And so he has two songs, Insomnia and Depression. If you enjoy these types of videos, please give this a thumbs up and subscribe. Leave me a comment. It means the world to me. And I'm so pleased to be able to connect with so many of you about REN's music. So let's crack on. Again, I've not watched this, so I have no idea what this is, but I've had insomnia forever. So probably from the age of like 12, maybe even before that, I've struggled with sleep. And definitely since moving out and living on my own at 15, it got really bad. Partly because I was so nervous because of places I was living. You know, I've had some pretty unsafe living conditions. I've lived in hostels. Spent some time not in housing. I've slept time on people's sofas. Like, I lived with my stepmom for a bit. There were people around me, but I have not been in stable housing my entire life. Let's put it that way. And so from as long as I can remember, I've had insomnia, and I hate it. You know, if there was a point for a good 10 years where if I got 3 or 4 hours sleep a night, that was a good night. And I was functional. I was holding down jobs, more than one job at that time, with 3 or 4 hours sleep a night. And that was on a good night. Most nights were 2 to 3. And because I had multiple jobs, I didn't have time to nap or make up for it any other time. It was an absolute nightmare. And so for many years, I was like, please just, I don't want to have insomnia anymore. Just let me sleep. This continued all the way up until about, what are we, 2023, end of 2018. I ended up in hospital with severe vomiting and diarrhea. Couldn't keep anything down, and my stomach, like the whole area, was so painful because I had nothing in me and I was just constantly dry heaving and retching and being sick. It was awful. I ended up in hospital over Christmas. It was a bit of a nightmare. So I come out of hospital. They couldn't find anything wrong. There were issues with my liver and my pancreas on blood tests, but when they did scans, everything was fine. It was really weird. And so I come out of that, and sort of around March time 2018, I start getting so sleepy. And I would come home from work, I would sit down and I would be asleep. And then I'd wake up and go to work the next day. And so when I got the diagnosis of the lupus and things, that started to make sense. And I was thinking, okay, great. I explained why I'm so tired. Hopefully these medications will help. And then the medications helped, and I was back to a semi-regular sleep pattern. I was still sleeping lots more than I previously had and more than other people, but it was still functional. Then in 2022, I got COVID for the 3rd time. The joys of having a compromised immune system and the government saying, no, schools are perfectly safe. Everyone who's a teacher should go to work. I've had COVID 4 times. I've got it from the kids every single time. And I ended up in hospital with COVID and all sorts. And then afterwards I was okay. But when I got it last year, so I tested positive in December 2022, it was insane. I was sleeping 22, 23 hours a day. I was up for an hour at a time. And it wasn't just that I was not waking up. Like, if someone came into the room and physically shook me, I didn't wake up. I was so out of it. And that's slowly improved, and I'm now sleeping about 12 hours a night. So, you know, better than it was, but 12 hours a night still isn't a functional life, really. You know, I can't go to work on consecutive days because there's not 12 hours in between for me to sleep. It's an absolute nightmare. And I've been trying to work. I've been doing sort of therapies and physio and stuff like that to try and build up my energy levels, but I'm still sleeping a crazy amount, not as much as I was, and I'm well aware that is the long COVID on top of all of my health conditions. And every time I see a medical professional, like, well, is that the COVID, or is that the lupus, or is that the arthritis, or is that the... I don't know. I'm not a medical professional. You guys are. You tell me. Anyway, so even up till today, since I was probably about 10, I have had disturbed sleep, shall we say, either far too little or far too much. And so when I saw he had a song called Insomnia, I thought, hey, let's give it a go. So let's take a look.
What is it all for? I've asked myself that question so many times now, it's become more worn than my Reebok classics. I'm a slave to frivolous habits. Of introspection without any destination, ruminating thoughts in constant rotation. Is this what it means to be conscious? To constantly question our conscious? Despondently fall on my back horizontally. Under my bed there are monsters that visit me when I try to sleep. They're those thoughts that play on repeat, that say, Ren, you're always gonna suffer, Ren. You're always gonna suffer. And I boomerang between optimism and pessimism so much that my sanctuary could be a prison. What blinds me could give me vision, and what finds me is this indecision of what to do with these questions. Is there purpose? Is there God? And if there is God, then God, why do I feel like this, God? Are we not sculpted in your image? And if so, do you feel that pain? Unrelinquishing pain, like my brain got put under a Bunsen burner and torched until the membranes became flame. I hate not sleeping. I like the weekend because other people don't sleep either. Mindless TV shows irritate me, but they're my messiah, because I can become brain dead, wasted, lost in trails of dry saliva. But I'm a survivor, a child of destiny. But this night has been testing me, question the mess that's progressing, undressing me, stripping me naked and stuffing the stress in me. I used to use drinking as a way to stop thinking, and my problems with drinking made me feel like I was sinking, so I dried up my drinking and I couldn't sleep a wink. And now I'm thinking, now I'm thinking, now I'm thinking, now I'm thinking about nothing. Fucking nothing and everything and nothing. I hate not sleeping, so I lie here trying to count sheep, and their bleating's repeating. My bleeding heart is beating and beating, eating. My sleep is depleting, pleading for healing. It's fleeting, longing for sleep that's so deep it's peaking. I weep in these sheets, it's doubling, doubly troubled. It's ugly, bleak, it's so bleak, it's so bleak. And I lost my mind, unaligned. I hate not sleeping. I hate not sleeping.
I did not expect to cry at that one. Jeez. Ren. Problem is, it's just so accurate. They're lying there with cycles and cycles and cycles of the same thoughts, which you're either thinking about nothing or you're thinking about every single thing you have ever done and everyone else's reaction to them. And it took me straight back there. Now, as much as I say my sleep is better now, it still takes me a long time to fall asleep, which makes this situation worse, because if I've got to be up at 7 for work, kind of means I need to be asleep by 7. But every time I go to bed, it takes me an hour or two to fall asleep. I can't read in bed because I'm obsessed with books, and if I read, I'm do the one more chapter until it's morning. So I don't read in bed. I have a few sort of backgroundy TV shows that I put on to fall asleep to, but I really struggle because if it's dead silent and pitch black, I sleep better. You can't get dead silent where I live, because we're not in the middle of nowhere. And so there is always noise. The cat noise is different. The cats don't tend to make me up as much just because I'm used to it. But if, like, there's a badger or a fox outside with the bins, or if next door makes a noise, I'm like, oh, I can't sleep. It's also really hard to get it pitch black. Even with blackout curtains that we've got, I really need to install a blackout blind as well to make it extra dark, because if there is light, if my eyes open at any point, and obviously if you lie there and force your eyes closed, you can't relax and fall asleep. So if my eyes open at any point, it sees that light and then my brain goes, oh, it's light, let's wake up. So frustrating. I can't wear a sleep mask because the feeling of it means that I can't sleep. I can't sleep well in headphones because I sleep on my side, because my hip pain, I sleep on this side usually, so then it's digging into my head and it's hurting. So it makes it really, really difficult. And God, just that took me straight back there. Shall we have a look at depression as well? Because I feel like that could be an interesting one, considering how much insomnia got to me. Let's do depression, because I've suffered with depression for many years. As I mentioned in a previous video, I've been on so many different types of antidepressant. I've tried so many different types, and I managed to find one that worked really well for me, and it was brilliant. But as with a lot of medications, you have to keep increasing the dose because you get used to it. And I was on this one for maybe 2 or 3 years, and it was incredible because it dilated my pupils. So if I ever went to work in a bar, or if we went out for the night, I'd get like refused entry because everyone thought I was on drugs because my eyes were so dilated. So the doctor ended up writing me a note to say, no, it's not. It is a medication, but it's a legal medication. And then unfortunately I reached the top dose they can give us as an outpatient, and they said if we increase this anymore, we're going to have to take you inpatient. And I definitely didn't want that. You know, being a teacher with mental health issues is a concern enough, because even to this day people hear that you are depressed or you're on antidepressants and they say like, oh my god, you're going to hurt my child. Not even close. If I've ever hurt anyone, it's myself. You know, it's I have turned that hatred upon myself, not ever on any other person. And so I was just like, there's no way I'm going inpatient, because if I have an inpatient stay on my record, there's no way I can do the only job that I've ever wanted to do and enjoy. So you know, there were probably a couple of times in my past I probably should have had some hospital visits to support me, but I knew that if I did that, that could put an end to my teaching career, so I never did it. Part of me now looks back on things and wish I had, because then I could have maybe dealt with a lot of the stuff that is still plaguing me now years ago. But at the time, the only thought in my head was stay out of hospital by any means necessary, because it's important. So it is what it is. You know, I'm pretty settled on the medications that I'm on now. They did get increased last year because my nan passed away and she raised me. She was incredible. She was just incredible. And she passed away last January. Now January is already a bad month for me because it's the month that my dad passed in, and so January is always very emotional for me. I've now lost 5 people in January. I don't like January very much. But yeah, I think I'm pretty settled on the medications that I'm on now for my mood and things like that, and I think that we're doing okay. I'm definitely far more level than I have been in the past, because my emotions kind of do this from time to time. At one point they did want to test for bipolar, but when they sent me to see the psychiatrist, she was like, that you don't have bipolar, which is kind of a shame because I really wanted an answer. don't get me wrong, I don't want to have bipolar, that's not what I'm saying, but I found it with my physical stuff as well. Once you actually have the name, the diagnosis, it helps me to know, because then I can research it, then I can talk to other people that have it, then I can, so having that label, although it's not always best for everyone, for me personally, I enjoy it because it means I can research, I can talk to other people who've experienced it, I can, look things up, and I can work out plans and get specific tricks, do you know what I mean? So, it's a thing. I mean, I have now got 2 mental health diagnoses, one of which is CPTSD, thanks to my childhood. And I think now that I've got the 2, I am on a medication that works for me personally. And so that's really positive. But I have struggled with this for many a year. So let's see if this one makes me cry, shall we?
Patterns are composed by a time bomb for an author, like pigs to the slaughter. A symphony of self-doubt sings out, breath starts getting shorter, running water. It's the state that I wish to become. Instead, concrete envelops my movement and I'm rendered deaf and dumb, unable to heed the advice of others. Don't tell me things will get better, for so far things haven't gotten better. I've got the sweater, poster child, bipolar, ADHD, therapist, wet dream. I don't want to talk about my father, I don't want to talk about my dead friend, I don't want to talk about myself. I'm sick of talking about myself. I'm sick of talking about myself and realizing that talking about myself never ever helps. Still, I call for help, cause I really want help. But the pills didn't seem to help, and the therapist didn't seem to help. But still, I want help. I've danced with the devil in hell, I've sat in a prisonless cell, and here I always dwell, in this prison in myself. I do this thing where my mind travels back to the golden age. You know those times where you were carefree and everything was golden? The golden age. You know those times where everything was golden, where you were carefree and everything was golden? The hardest thing I ever had to do was come to terms with the fact that that time never really existed. I've always felt so fucking detached and broken, bruised and mismatched. Find it hard to relax, living under the cracks. Tried to fill in the gaps, lying here on my back. Still, I can't find it. Sense of peace in my mind declined it. Pulse increase and my sweat combines with a feeling so deep I fall inside it. Depression, I hate you, depression. Your constant oppression, respond with aggression. They say depression brings you lessons. Constant stressing conceals blessings. You will grow in broken settings. Fuck those lessons, fuck depression. I've been living in your shadow for so long that I forgot how I can shine. How I can find a refuge in my mind. How am I meant to sit here and unwind? The planets align. I feel like I'm cursed. Feel like I'm cursed to just be here to hurt. Feel like I'm cursed to just be here to bleed. But my demons been feeling this way since birth. Depression, I hate you. 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 Depression, I hate you.
Well, that answers that question. Yes, it's going to make me cry. Oh, man. That hit me. So this, a lot of that song spoke to me. The thing that really hit me, and as I mentioned, my CPTSD is due to my childhood. This is the bit that hit me. Because I was watching this and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, most people had that sort of as a child maybe. And then the fact that he just turns around and says that it never existed. That got me. Like, it's hard because in a way it did exist, because when I was a kid, I did not realise, for many years, I did not realise that what was happening to me wasn't happening to everybody else. You know, I'd never heard anybody talk about it, so I just kind of assumed it happened everywhere. The thing that gave birth to me had some friends who were very similar, and so when they would come over, things still happened. And I genuinely thought it was normal. And then at about age 10, I want to say, around the age of 10, I actually got invited to another child's birthday sleepover. I'd never been invited before. I was bullied as a kid. When I was at school, I was dirty, I had greasy hair, my uniform didn't fit very well, my lunches, like, I was a kid's dream to pick on. You could pick on everything about me, right? And I had no confidence, so I never stood up to any of them. Although school was still my favourite place to be most of the time, because it wasn't at home. And so I went to this girl's sleepover, and I don't know if it was because I was her mum forced her to invite me or what, because we weren't really that close. But anyway, I went to this sleepover, and, you know, we went to sleepover, we were having fun, we were chatting away. Her parents came in, said goodnight to us, turned the light off, and everyone went to sleep. And I'm thinking, what? And then when they woke up in the morning, they were really nice. They made breakfast for the kids. And this whole time I'm walking around the house going like, this is the Twilight Zone. What is going on? Just realised I've still got these on. And that is when it first entered my brain that perhaps my situation wasn't the norm for everybody else. It still took me until I was 13 to start fighting back. So it still took a good 2 or 3 years for me to learn that, you know, I was able to protect myself, fight back when I needed to. And like, I remember I would cover for her. I would lie about where I hurt myself or how I hurt myself. When my nan would phone, I would be like, oh, she's in the bath, or oh, she's just popped out, or she's just gone to bed with a headache. You know, the fact that she was fucking passed out unconscious because she'd drunk how many bottles of vodka is neither here nor there. In myself, I felt like I had to protect her, you know. She was my parent. You love your parents, don't you? And so I covered for her so many times. And it's only in having conversations with people as an adult that I realised other people actually knew. Like my dad, just before he passed away, was trying to get sole custody with his new wife. And I did end up living with my stepmom for a while when I moved out of home, which was incredible because, you know, I had nowhere else to go really. I couldn't stay with my nan. She was older. It's not fair on her. And by that point, I was pretty wild. I was drinking quite a lot. I was staying out late. I was rebelling. And so, yeah, thankfully she did. And I still remember I went to my primary school for my work experience because I knew I wanted to go into education. So I arranged to go back to my primary school to do my work experience. And I remember there were, not all of my teachers were still there, but there were a couple of teachers who were still there. And one of whom I'd got on really, really well with. And so I was in the staff room one day having lunch, and she came over and asked me how I was. And she was like, so, where are you living now? And I turned around and went, don't worry, I left home. And she was like, oh, thank God. Because it was the 80s and 90s. Schools didn't have the input they have now into child protection issues, you know, and it hurt to know that they knew, but it was nice to know that they knew and cared, and the fact that she was so relieved I wasn't living there anymore. So yeah, it's really only been since an adult that I have had conversations with people who knew me as a kid, some family members and some outsiders, and realised that most people knew. I thought I'd done so well at hiding it. I thought I'd done so well. But no, I hadn't. And I go through phases. Sometimes I'm really pleased that people knew and were trying to do something for me outside, but then I get really frustrated that that didn't happen. Whereas now, if I was in that situation as a child now, then I'm fairly sure that I would have been removed from that house. And so I go through these phases of thinking, is that a really good thing? Is that a really bad thing? And, you know, there's nothing I can do about it now. I just try not to get too upset about that now. But yeah, it's an interesting one, and I've gone completely off topic of talking about my depression, although I haven't really, because most of my concerns are due to my childhood. And yeah, his music is incredible. His lyrics are so clever, so wise beyond his years, so reflective, so powerful. And I'm in awe. I'm in absolute awe of him. The way he can explain things, the way his lyrics connect with people, the way he enunciates things and articulates things is just incredible. And I'm so glad that I found him. Even though I've cried a lot of his music, crying can be cathartic. And I'm so pleased that I found him. So, yeah. If you've been touched by any of these things, I will pop some links and phone numbers in the description box for places in the UK that you can go to for support that I personally have used and have found useful. So, you know, if you are struggling, there are people out there and communities out there and places that are out there that can help you. And it's hard to ask for help, but if you can, do it, because no one should feel like this long term. And I've been lucky enough to have times in my life where I haven't been as plagued by these things as I have been in recent times. And so I'm still in a bit of a place at the moment, and so I'm trying to look past it and think back to, you've had times where this wasn't as difficult for you, and so I'm aiming to get back there. And you know, I did have to wait a long time for therapy on the NHS. I waited for nearly 2 years after I referred myself, because I couldn't afford to pay for it. I still can't really afford to pay therapy, so I do have it through the NHS, but it did take 2 years to get there. And I do feel like, had I had this before my nan passed away, I would have been able to deal with her passing much better, because I wouldn't have been where I was, and then even lower because of losing her. But yeah, there are people and places out there that can help you, so if you need it, do reach out. And yeah, leave me any comments that you've had about either of these songs, and I will see you on the next one. Loopy love.